Like a lot more than I ever like anticipated.
I know. You know, and it's cool how people just do it for like a hobby and everything, but there's like so much they can, you know, learn and take on. Alrighty. Hi everyone, we are so glad that you're here with us today. As you can see from our table, we are so excited it's fall now.
Yes.
We've decked out our table with pumpkins and corn and flowers. And so to introduce ourselves, I'm Jessica Mitchell. I'm an editor at Mother Earth News.
And I'm Q. I'm a social media coordinator for Mother Earth News and Mother Earth Living.
Okay. And this week is #Honey Week for us, and it's also National Honey Month. So we thought a great way to celebrate that is to show everyone how to do beeswax candles. And so we're going to be doing a homemade beeswax candle, and we have some stuff prepped already for you, but we're going to walk you through the steps, how to make it, and how simple it really is to make these little candles, and talk about some of the benefits of beeswax candles, why it's great that you can do it from scratch, and also why it would be just beneficial from a more therapeutic and even health standpoint.
And you don't have to be a beekeeper to do it. You can just get some beeswax and get going. But if you are a beekeeper, this is something great you could do with your honey.
Right, and both of us do not own bees.
Yeah,
so.
we do not. We are not. We've been around bees, as you heard, but we have not. We don't have our own hives or anything like that, but we really appreciate bees.
Yeah. So we're super excited to get this started, but before we do that, Q is going to talk a little bit about some of the shout outs we'd like to give.
Yeah, so the recipe that we are taking on today is container beeswax candles, and this is from our Keeping Backyard Bees website. It's a microsite of ours that we're really proud of. And then we got this book from our bookstore, and there is a code for you to get a discount if you want to purchase this book. So this is the Beeswax Alchemy, and it doesn't just cover beeswax. It covers you know, what, like, about the bees and how they make the beeswax and like what it takes for them to do that. And then it goes on to what all you can do with beeswax.
The pictures are beautiful.
The pictures are beautiful. I'm going to show you some stuff from here.
One of our favorites is the luminary ones.
Yeah, is that in the back?
Well, I think there's one like in the beginning couple pages, I think, as well too, like in the contents. There's so many different things that you can make with beeswax. Yeah, this is so cool. So we're not making this today, but this is something else you can do. The author was showing how you can use balloons, kind of like how people do it for like chocolate or something like that when they're baking. And then this is beeswax, and you can kind of make a luminary type of holder.
Yes.
Just super awesome.
And then, you know, it talks about the types of wax that you get when you do harvest. And then in the back, something I love since I'm super into aromatherapy and herbs is that it goes over herbs and what they're good for and how you can incorporate them with your wax. It talks about oils and how you can use those oils and a lot more. I mean, it talks about them like melting points, really just kind of like a small encyclopedia of what you can do with your wax. And again, this is on the Mother Earth News store. It is going to be linked on this video, and there is a coupon code for it showing on the screen. So we love it.
And we recommend doing some reading before you get started, because there is some safety precautions you want to take, and also just knowing what you're getting into when you start with beeswax. We also have a little shout out quickly as well.
Yes, to Mountain Rose Herbs for sending us the wax and the oils that we're going to be using today. We're so thankful for them. This is how we're able to make the video. So thank you, Mountain Rose Herbs, and we look forward to making the candles with this stuff.
Yeah, so let's get started. We're first just going to lay out the ingredients and the tools that we have to make these candles. And again, we are using inspiration from a recipe on Keeping Backyard Bees. We individualized it a little bit just based on the equipment that we have, but we're going to go through the recipe and show how we made some differences as well, just to make it more customized to your candle making experience. So first off, in the list, the first thing is it calls for a pound of beeswax, but the amount will really depend on the size of your container. So we are using these small containers, just these little glass jars, and so we have 2 of them. We're going to see if we can fill both of them up. We just think this is really cute size too. So we have this, and then we have our beeswax. We put some in this jar so you can better see it. So I'll open it up a little bit.
But this is a pound, so the bag comes in a pound, and you're ready to go with that.
Yeah, so I have some in my hand here, and it's just very like small grains of beeswax. We're saying it almost looks like cereal or something.
Yeah. A lot of us, like, without even talking to each other, we're like, that looks like Rice Krispie or like cereal.
Yeah, but don't eat it.
Yeah, don't eat it.
So we have this in a jar. So then we have put some in a double boiler that we have melted down, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We also have some wick. So right now it's in a very long strand of it that we'll cut, and we'll work on that later. We have some wick, and then we also have our wick tabs. So those little metal things you put in the bottom of whatever candle holder you're using. We've already fastened them in there so that we can make the recipe speed up a little bit more. But that's just something you'll have to pay attention to as well. And then the other thing that we are adding is our essential oils to make a nice scent for our candles. This is not mandatory, especially if you're very sensitive to scents and you just want to stick with just plain beeswax. That's fine. But we're also going to be stirring in some of our oils, and then also you just want to make sure you have a double boiler, or if you don't have like an official double boiler, we have a pot here we fill with water that's boiling, and then you just set another pot on top, and that's where you can melt your beeswax.
We pretty much makeshifted ours.
Yep, and then we have a little thermometer here. And as long as you have, some tongs, spoons, making sure that you have maybe a towel or something like that in case something gets too hot, that's basically all you need. And then a heat source.
Yep. So you can do this in your kitchen.
Right. And one of just the things you just want to make sure of, a safety precaution, is beeswax is pretty flammable when it gets heated down. So make sure that you have a very nice, reliable, safe heat source. So no open flame, no little candles underneath. Yeah. We recommend something like this. It's either a hot plate or a safe stovetop.
Yes.
So those are the ingredients. And so in a moment, I'm going to hand this over to Q, and she's going to talk a little bit about adding the essential oils as well. But as I said before, we have melted down our beeswax, which looks just very like amber liquid. So it's very liquidy. It's all melted down. I think usually it's about this recipe recommends about 150-ish degrees. So we've been checking the temperature to make sure it is melted and is hot enough for us to use. All right, so Q, go ahead and you can talk a little bit about our essential oils.
Yeah, and before we move on, do we have any questions from our audience? Questions. If you have any questions, let us know. Or if you've made some of this, use the hashtag honeyweek, and we will take a look at it and maybe share it.
Yeah.
I will actually personally be looking at them. So we're going to talk about the oils. We used peppermint the other day, and
it smelled great.
Really opened up our nose, and we were like, whoa, this is so strong. But it was great. And then Jessica took it home and used it, and she said it was wonderful.
It smelled wonderful in the kitchen.
But really, we're going to be using them more on the emotional therapeutic side of aromatherapy, and not necessarily on the anti-immunity or that kind of thing, unless you're making a salve or something like that. But in this sense, it's just really going to be for the smell and for your emotional support. So today we have mandarin, and mandarin is great as a calming oil. You might think it's like a regular citrus, but it's actually really calming. It's not brightening like orange would be. And then we have peppermint, like we talked. So I thought of Christmas. I was like, it smells like a candy cane.
Oh, it does.
And then we have lavender, which is a lot of people's favorite, and that's going to be calming too. But one of the great things is that you can actually make your candles smell however you want, and it's actually going to be ingredients that you trust. And then, so if you wanted to make a candle to smell like fall, you could do that. You could get some cinnamon or cardamom or something like that. So
which ones are we going to use today?
So I think we are going to do lavender. We did peppermint. I will say mandarin has a little bit of a harder time coming through when you mix it with stuff.
Yeah, I remember doing that with soap.
Yeah, with the soap it didn't come out, and then I used it for the hand cream for the fair and the face cream, and it's not coming through at all.
Oh,
but
interesting.
It's if you're using it in a something that you're applying, it's still going to have the benefit. I don't know if in a candle it would, because it's in the wax, and so again, it's going to be more for that emotional support.
Yeah,
so
lavender is a nice choice.
Or relax. Maybe this is for your bath time, or bedtime.
I do like lavender. Out of those three, is lavender your favorite Q?
Mandarin is actually my favorite.
Ooh.
I love mandarin.
I would not have pegged you as mandarin.
Yes, mandarin is my favorite. It's like the hidden secret because it's so relaxing, but I love citrus, and I don't always want to have citrus at night, so that's and I use it for a lot of things. So last time we did 40 drops, but we only did one candle, so we're actually going to do quite a bit of drops, and this is really going to be your decision. You're going to smell it and kind of decide how strong you want it to be. Last time, this entire room that we're in smelled like peppermint. Somebody walked by and was like, "It smells like peppermint."
Yeah, I know.
And so
people outside the office.
You kind of get to decide. I'm going to do about 60 drops, so that's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So
I will.
We can answer some questions if we have
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, what's the difference between mandarin and plain orange? Orange oil comes through better from lemon.
That's a good question.
So I did about 20 there, so I can pause and talk about it.
Q knows a little bit more
So
about
she said orange, right?
Yeah.
Orange is going to be, first of all, it's going to be phototoxic, which means you can't apply it to the skin and go outside because of the sun exposure. Green mandarin is not phototoxic. So those are the main differences that I see if you're applying it. And then orange is more of an uplifting, refreshing kind of scent. It's very good for cleaning. Mandarin is going to be more for calming, relaxing. It's actually a sedative. I wouldn't say it's as strong as other sedatives in the essential oil family, but it is more of that calming oil. It is used for skincare quite a bit. We apologize for the sound. It's just
I think it's hot
being
enough.
silly. But yeah, so it's going to be more, it's used for skincare and you don't have to worry about having it out in the sun. I use it a lot just to relax. So in a candle, it would be great for that. But yeah.
That's a great question. It's
they're
always
very
good to know
different.
about your essential oils as well before you start adding them in. And
do
just to
another
give
20.
you an idea about scents, so Q's putting in, you know, you said 60, right? And we put in 40 before when we were just making one candle. And I would have to say, I think the scent was a tiny bit stronger when we were putting them in when the beeswax was melted versus when we put in a candle and the candle dried up and everything and firmed up. And then when it was, you know, lit again, it was a slightly more subtle scent to it, but there wasn't a huge difference between what it smells like in the pot and what it smells like in the candle, at least with my experience with lighting it in my own apartment.
Yeah, it really depends on the size of your place.
This is true.
Yeah, in this room, you know, that was pretty strong. In my house, I would need to put in probably 100 drops, just because, especially if it was downstairs. Yeah, and because the rooms connect, you know, and so it would be like in one space. It'd be great for the kitchen, though.
Yeah, it would be. It smells
So
nice.
then we just want to stir it and make sure it's all, you know, together. It should spread out really easily just because it's so warm.
And as Q is doing some more stirring, we're going to start bringing the jars over. The other thing we're going to do before we pour it in is we are going to prime our wick. And so that's one of the things you want to make sure that you do, because it's going to help the wick stand up straight in the jar, and it's also going to help you when you are lighting the candle for the first time. So we have a couple little tongs here.
Yeah, and you want to be careful here because the wax is very hot.
Yeah.
So wax usually melts about around 140, but we got it up to 150 for this recipe, so it's pretty hot.
So I'm just cutting a little bit of the wick, and Q's just going to dip it into the wax, and that's how we're going to just prime it so that it stands up a little bit straighter.
Where would
So
you
then I
like
have
me
a
to
second
place
one
it?
here. Let's put it here, just right on the cup here. So as we're just waiting for this to dry up and solidify a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the benefits with doing homemade beeswax candles. So for some of the more obvious things, it really helps you with locality. Some of your materials you can get from local beekeepers if they're selling beeswax, and that helps support your local beekeepers and the bees as well. So the other thing is, because you are controlling your inputs, again, if you have sensitivities to certain ingredients in candles that are, you know, on the shelf somewhere in a store, you have the opportunity to make ones that you know are going to be fine for you. So that's another good benefit. Another thing is with beeswax, it's considered a renewable resource versus some of the other candles out there on the market. A lot of them have paraffin wax in them, which that is a non-renewable resource. And so when you're making your beeswax candles, you are, you're helping the environment a little bit, just being a little bit more sustainable that way as well. So yeah, I think the wax is already drying pretty quickly.
It's really fast. If you're really worried about what you're bringing into your home, this is a great way to just go pretty natural.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and it looks like we have another question.
Jody wants to know if pouring the oil in before you pour it into the glasses would run off the properties, the good properties of the oil.
Of the oil? That's a great question, and I'm not sure if I have like the exact answer because it depends on the oil that you're using for like the melting point of each one. That's why I'm saying therapeutically, it's not going to really be more of that. Like if you say you have sinus problems and you want peppermint, it's not going to do that expectorating thing where it's going to help you breathe better, but it's going to have that smell. So we burned it pretty high. So that is pretty hot. We put it towards the end, so it's not like it was there for a long time, and we turned it off. So if you're just worried about that, I would maybe put it in afterwards, but that wax is super fast at drying. We experienced it last time. It was like 5 minutes and it was like already solidifying. So I would say it's not going to be like if you say you make an immune blend, it's not really going to be an immunity thing where it's going to help you fight colds. You want to do other supplemental things that are going to benefit you a lot better than just a candle. The candle is going to be mostly for like fun and to feel emotionally well. Maybe there's a smell you connect with. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great gifts.
They are great gifts. Yes, I want to make a bunch of them. Every time we do one of these things, I'm like,
simple.
Can we just make a bunch so we can give them away?
So I'm going to show you what this looks like. So here's our metal tab. I just stuck it right in here. I clipped some of the uncoated area of the wick so that it can stand a little bit better. So it's kind of just leaning right now, but you're going to supervise it being stuck straight up as the wax dries. So before our wax dries too much in the pot, we're going to pour it in and then we'll clip the wick as it starts to dry. So
can we talk about how we did it last time?
Yeah, but we'll probably have to heat that up because I don't want the wax to melt.
You're right.
So
I want to talk about how we put it threaded through and what happened.
Sure. Yeah, as Q is starting to pour this, I'll talk a little bit about that. So we tried out making one before this video just to make sure we understood the process and could show everyone a little bit better. And so earlier what we did was I actually threaded the wick through onto the bottom of the tab, and that didn't work as well when we were trying to put some like non-toxic glue on there. And really fastening the tab is really up to your comfort level. I know that there are probably some more natural alternatives out there with fastening the tab. But I found that because the wick was under the tab, it was hard for it to stay on the bottom. This time we put the tab on before putting the wick in. And so then when it starts to dry, you're just going to supervise the wick to stand straight up. But even now, the wick's not floating up to the top, especially because it has a little more weight on it with the beeswax. So right now it's just leaning to the side, but that's something you just want to keep an eye on as the beeswax starts to dry.
Yeah, and if you can tell, it's already like getting to that color where it's going to start setting. So it starts setting from the outside towards the inside. And then also they do recommend warming your containers beforehand so the beeswax doesn't separate from the container. We didn't experience that.
No,
we also didn't experience any holes at the top that we had to refill because that can happen. I'm thinking maybe when you have a bigger container that you might get some air in there.
I think so. Yeah, the recipe that we are going off of does say that probably if you are using a larger container, like Q said, there might be a little bit of a dip in the middle of your candle as it starts to dry. And when that happens, you want to have some more beeswax on the side, and it recommends just pouring some on the top to help level off the top of it. And that'll just help. And then as well, putting your jars in the oven to warm up will help it from like unsticking from the sides. But again, with our size containers, we didn't really run into that problem.
Nope. We were pretty good.
So I think it's like you can even see a little bit drying see it drying now on the sides.
It's so fast.
And obviously,
it's pretty hot to the touch, though.
It is. It's very warm.
So
So again, just be careful. Make sure you have your towels and everything on hand. But obviously, we're not going to stand here and wait for these to dry.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
So I have one here that we made earlier. I'll just kind of hold it up for everybody to see. So this has been burned before when I was in my apartment the other night. This is our peppermint one. So here's a little indent from when it had already melted, beeswax. But this is, again, after it has been lit before. So it's the same size glass jar, same ingredients. The only difference is that we have peppermint essential oil in here instead of our lavender. And you can smell the peppermint mixed with the beeswax when it's not lit as well.
Smells pretty good.
One of the things we realized too is just making sure that your wick stays nice and clipped so it doesn't get super smoky on you. But other than that, when I lit it in my apartment, it was really nice. It gave a really nice soothing peppermint scent. And it wasn't, you know, super smoky or anything. Nothing smelled weird. So it really turned out really nice. And the kind of cool part about, like, I don't know, maybe this is just me, I really like it, is that, you know, when it's not in use, like, you have this cute little top.
Yes.
You just kind of screw it on.
And the article that we have in the comments about how to make this, it has like a part where you can decorate your actual container. So you can take it one step further and decorate your container, make it for someone special. Maybe they like a certain smell, and you can actually do that. And it doesn't take very long, you know. It was pretty fast. And everything in the book, I mean, it goes to every detail to like how they take care of the wax when they're, you know, when they're at the beehive, what kind of wax they're using for this, and then like how to clip the wick, because there is a kind of like a certain way you clip it. There's illustrations on that. I mean, there's a lot of information in there that I didn't even know. And different ways to make candles.
It also talks about the different types of wax.
Yes,
as
it
well.
does. Yep.
Light colored wax versus dark colored wax, how that comes about, which ones you want to be using for your candles. It's a really great resource for people who aren't super familiar with bees and beeswax and honey. So I really liked flipping through it, and it shows all these different great ways to make stuff. And little hacks, like I'm seeing stuff with bobby pins for holding the wicks in place, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's what they were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We were like, you could put a bobby pin and just kind of hold it in place. Like right there.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's a great idea.
I like that idea.
Anyway, this was a lot of fun.
It was, and it's. I think it's pretty simple. I'm not very good at crafts.
I would say that you are, but
okay.
But I'll let you say that.
Personally, I'm not. Maybe I'm not just. Maybe my family's just really good at crafts.
Okay,
I just never. I
see.
can never compete with them.
Yes.
Shout out to my sister. But I find this very simple and very doable, not super frustrating. And at the end of the day, like, you have some great little gifts or something to put around your apartment. Yeah, and I think you probably feel the same way.
I do. And I want to give one last shout out to the Mother Earth News Fair that will be here in Topeka, October 13th and 14th. I will be teaching a hands-on class on the 14th at 10 a.m. and we will be making Rosemary's famous hand cream, which does have some beeswax in it, so you'll get some practice with us. So if you're in the area, come on out and have fun with us.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
Yep.
Well, that is our recipe. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, do you, from Pamela, do you know how you can prevent tunneling in the candle? There's a hard rim on the outside.
Like on the outside of the rim?
Or it just burns in the middle?
Oh, when it starts kind of caving
that's a good
in,
question,
like in here?
because that kind of happened to us too.
Yeah, this typically happens when a lot of the candles burn. I don't know how to prevent it when you start burning it. I do know that when you're making it, if it starts caving in that center, you want to layer it as it starts drying up with some more beeswax. So that's a way to just make it even in the making process. But when it comes to when you're burning it and trying to keep it consistent, I am not familiar with any ways. There might be some people in the comments who would know, and so we love hearing from people with a lot of experience with candle making, if they have any hacks about trying to keep it even as the candle's burning, because that does get a little annoying. Like when you do burn a candle and it caves in and you're not able to get it from the sides.
Part of me would be like, I'm just going to make more wax and pour it in to keep the candle going. That's what I would do.
Keep it up level.
I think if you're having that issue as you're making it, definitely pour in another layer of it, because that kind of makes another thick layer to kind of hold it. So.
Oh, I'm already seeing.
And I think we're already like,
Yeah,
So fast.
I don't want to
Any more
hold it up,
questions?
but
Joyce would like to know if any glass container would work for making candles.
Ooh, I would stick to more of like these types of jars that you like make like actually can with, because they have that extra like security where they can handle hot and cold, because it's going to go from one temperature to the next pretty quickly. This is very hot. I mean, it's as hot as if you were cooking. So think about it as being like, if you can cook with it and it can get hot, then you can use it. Not necessarily putting it in the oven, but actually putting really hot stuff in it. And these are so affordable.
I think I remember hearing one time as well about if you can figure out where glass jars are made from. Sometimes it depends on the company and how it's manufactured. There are some glass jars that might have some added ingredients in it. I know a lot of jars, I think made in this country, are just like glass.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty trustworthy brands out there where you can get it. But some glass ones might just kind of give you that extra assurance saying it's microwave and oven safe. I think with any glass container, you just want to make sure you're not transferring it to extreme temperatures really fast. But from what I've learned, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a glass jar that's going to be terrible. I mean, there might be some really thin ones you would want to be careful with.
Like a drinking cup or something?
Yeah, these ones are pretty sturdy. They have a pretty thick sides to them, but I would just be careful if you're taking it from one extreme temperature to the other, because there's the potential for it to crack.
And you
or something.
could, if you were like wondering because you want to reuse something you have, if it's one of those like pasta jars, those are typically pretty good for like heat. So I would say you could reuse those and make them in that.
Yeah. But we always talk a lot about just using traditional canning jars for things, making ghee or butter or
and in the book it does talk about molds and like what you can use. So
and it doesn't necessarily have to be glass. There's some ones that stand up on their own. There are ones that you put in a mold and it sits on a dish or something like that. This is just one idea of how to make candles.
There's so many ideas on our website. We found like probably 20 articles on it, so take a look and you might find something that you like.
Absolutely.
Any more questions?
Again from Jody, can you put dried herbs in the candle wax?
Yeah, it's in the book, I think.
Yes, there is a section in the back about herbs, and it has a little dictionary of all the different herbs that are featured that I think you can put into your beeswax. I think if it's dried, it makes it a little easier than if it's like a fresh herb.
I don't know that it's gonna, just like any herb, when you have essential oil, it's like a concentrated form. So you can put it in there, and like remember when we made that the soap, how when we put in the dry herbs, it kind of stripped everything from it. So it might, if the temperature is right, it might strip those basically scents or oils out of it, and kind of like when you if you're like infusing an oil, it's going to do that same thing. But again, it might not be as strong as essential oils, because essential oils are so concentrated. So that's really up to you. But it could look really cool. I have seen when we made the soap, the lavender turned green. So be prepared for things to happen.
Color.
Yeah, it turned like this really dark green.
But yeah, in this book, if you're interested in looking at it, there is a dictionary in the back that lists some different herbs that have been used in everything. And then I'm sure I haven't looked at all of these recipes.
There's so many in here.
Yeah, there's a ton
of them. Even deodorant.
But there are ones here which are talking about like salves as well, and there are some herbs that are being featured there. So not a candle, but it is part of beeswax.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, Jessica, you might know this because you burned one of the candles the other night. Do you know how long it will take? Linda is wanting to know
I actually looked that up.
She can get out of that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's about the burn time for these candles. So depending on your size of your candle, obviously it'll be different. So here, I'll show you again what this looks like. I think this was about an hour, no more than an hour, that I had it burning on the stove in my little kitchen area. So there's a tiny little dent. So the outside ring here is where we had filled it up to, and then right here you can see it's just like about half my fingernail. That's how much I got of an indent here, which is probably about an hour's worth of burning.
In the one in the article that's linked to the actual video, the one for container, the one we're following, the container size that they have, that's about 60 hours. So That's about how much. I mean, because it is just wax, it takes a while to get through it. It's
Yes.
not that hot.
Yeah. But yeah, so I did it for about an hour. It didn't really sink down a ton, which was nice. And I think keeping the wick a little bit smaller might be able to help with that. If I learned anything from my English lit classes about Ebenezer cutting the wick to save money on candles.
That's how you do it.
Yep.
That's why the book talks about it. It's like, because it tells you to clip it pretty low so it doesn't smoke and go really fast. So that is a good trick, actually.
Yeah.
You did learn something from that.
We did. But yeah, so smaller candles, you might go through them a little bit faster than bigger ones. But yeah, that was in my personal experience. That was kind of the time with the burning.
Anything else? Okay, well, if we don't have anything else.
Yeah, great questions, everyone. Thanks so much. And we learned so much through it as well, you know, thinking of questions that we might not have necessarily thought of. But it's great. So before we sign off, these are still a little hot, but they're already starting to solidify, which is great. So soon we're going to clip the wick a little bit, and then we'll probably take these bad boys home.
Yep. They'll be ready to go home.
So thank you again for tuning in for how to make beeswax candles. Again, shout out to Beeswax Alchemy. If you're interested in purchasing the book, we have it on our store, and there's a promo code in the comments.
Yes, and on the screen as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Man, it's like, I think on like cold days, I almost want to just like hold them.
Like a coffee.
It's a little warm in here, but.